of sorrow. Yeah, but you cannot say irony, simply irony. Why? We don't use nouns unless before that noun you have the preposition of. That is allowed if the preposition of comes before the noun. But just to make work easier and things clearer, it's just better to use adjectives instead of struggling with the nouns. But if you are to use the nouns, the word of should be before that noun. Tone of sorrow, tone of regret, tone of bitterness, tone of hopelessness. So that is about tone. And I have already mentioned in our mock exam, of course, you're supposed to talk about a satirical tone. The writer satirizes the development agenda directly hindered by corruption and so on. So satirical tone, because the passage is talking about corruption, it is condemning corruption, it is ridiculing corruption. So a satirical tone. Then we have the concept on attitude. Attitude has to do with your feelings towards someone else or towards a certain topic or a certain issue. How do you feel about corruption? If maybe the question was, what is the writer's attitude towards corruption? How does the writer talk about corruption? You know, what is the attitude? So how the writer talks about corruption tells us his attitude or her attitude towards it. The writer is not praising corruption. The writer is ridiculing corruption. So we say that the writer has a contemptuous attitude towards corruption. So we talk about, we have, again, just like tone, we have those adjectives that we use to describe attitude. You know, the author's perception on a certain topic, yeah, on a certain situation. It could be a feeling of contempt or disagreement or admiration or approval, etc. So words used to describe attitude. Attitude can be pessimistic or hopeless. It can be resigned. Attitude can be submissive. It can be loving. It can be malicious. It can be respectful. Attitude can be superior. It can be sympathetic. It can be supporting. We have so many different adjectives you can use to describe attitude, but you cannot talk about attitude being positive or negative. I have come across scripts where a candidate is talking about attitude being negative. You have to give a specific word that revolves around that negativity. So don't use general terms like positive. We have so many adjectives that point at positive. Like when you say loving, respectful, these are positive words. So when you say that attitude is positive, are you referring to the author having a loving attitude, respectful attitude, optimistic attitude? These are positive words. If it is, we are talking about negative, we have contemptuous, we have disdainful. So you have to specify, you have to give a particular adjective that describes the attitude. So never use words like positive attitude, negative attitude, good attitude, or bad attitude. You have to give a specific adjective that describes the attitude, a doubtful attitude, and so forth. So many times in passages, you'll be given questions to do with attitude. Yeah, attitude. You'll be given questions to do with tone. You'll be given questions to do with mood. Another commonly tested concept rather in the seen and unseen passage. So the mood, the general atmosphere, the general feeling we get, yeah, on the situation, yeah. So sometimes we have questions to do with mood. So at the back of your mind, you should be able to understand these three different concepts. So mood refers to the atmosphere, the feeling in the passage, yeah, the feeling. So when you read the passage, what feeling do you get? Yeah, it is possible to tell the mood of the passage. Yeah, even when you don't understand the meaning. Yeah, So what feeling do we get from that passage after reading it? So of course, we have again adjectives that you can use to describe mood. Mood can be somber, yeah. It can be bitter. It can be desperate. It can be sad. It can be sorrowful. Yeah. It can be desolate, unhappy, resigned, emotional. What atmosphere, yeah, do we get from the situation? So we have again all these adjectives that you need to be conversant with and know which one to use. Know which one to use, because this is again another commonly tested concept when it comes to both the seen and unseen passage. So for this mock exam, we only had a question to do with the tone. But there is a year when NEC tested all the three concepts in both the seen and unseen passage. So again, this is a commonly tested area. Yeah, so that is why I'm advising you to go through the past KCSE exams. Familiarize yourself, yeah, with the questions, because these are standard questions and the kind of answers, because you'll be given, especially as I keep advocating for better best, because the answers given there are answers that were actually used in the marking, in the coordination of the exam. So familiarize yourself with all the past KCSE exams before you sit for the exam. Go through, you'll be assured of an A when you go through as many KCSE exams as possible. Then, of course, we also have questions on grammar for the seen, for the unseen passage, and even the seen passage. We have questions on grammar where you should expect a question or two on grammar and sentence construction. Sometimes you're required to rewrite a question. Sometimes you're required to add a question tag, yeah? But you have to observe all grammatical rules. Any grammatical mistake is penalized. Grammar is very strict. Any faulty expression, any punctuation error. For example, you leave out a full stop at the end of the sentence or a question mark. You start your sentence with a small letter. That will attract a penalty. So grammar is basically very strict, because you have to ensure that your expressions are on point and that your punctuation is also on point. So it can be a question on, like I've said, question tags. It can be a question on sentence, in sentence inversion. Anything can be tested. When we look at our mock exam, the concept, the grammar concept was, of course, on inversion. So we need to take steps to reduce the former so the latter is much less attractive. Rewrite beginning steps. So this is a question on inversion. So sometimes the grammar will test inversion. So steps need to be taken to deduct, to reduce rather, the former so that the latter is much less attractive. So sometimes the question will be on sentence inversion. So expect a question on grammar, one or two questions on grammar. The same case for the same passage. Then we have questions on vocabulary. We're still looking at the unseen passage. That is the comprehension, what we know as the comprehension. We are very concerned that you are not doing very well in this section. Maybe because we have been paying more attention to the set books, the question 2, that is the excerpt and poetry, at the expense of question 1, because most of the time we expect you to do revision even on your own. This is a question where you can do revision on your own and do very well. You really shouldn't, you don't really need so much of a teacher's guidance, especially after going through this session. You already know how to tackle comprehension questions. So on your own, ensure that you revise comprehension. Don't assume comprehension. As I've said, avoid just revising everything when it comes to this paper 2. You have to have a special day for just revising comprehension. You must have a special day for poetry and so on. Yeah, to make revision. So that random revision where you just revise everything, that will not. A topical revision is the best way to go about this paper. So when it is time to revise for comprehension, look at least 2 comprehensions, especially you look at past KCSE comprehension questions. So we have questions on vocabulary, where it tests your ability to give meaning of words and phrases. So for this, I advise that you give a synonym or a brief explanation. Most of the time, just a synonym. So that marks the end of the first question of paper 2, that is the unseen passage. The unseen passage, or what we call the comprehension, which is out of 20 marks. Kindly don't assume this area, because you're not doing very well. You're not doing very well. You already now know what to expect when it comes to this question. I have talked about inference questions that require reasoning. I have talked about factual questions. So it is an integration, of all these different questions. I have taken you through summary and note making. I've taken you through vocabulary. So you should not, this is a question that you can even score 20 out of 20 if you take it seriously. And it will boost your performance in the overall paper. So out of 80, this is a question that can help you score very highly if you take it seriously, if you consider what I have mentioned, especially when it comes to preparation. Before now responding to the questions, you should prepare well before you respond to the questions. Then I want us to look at question 2, the same passage that is drawn from any part of the text, and questions are said from it. This is a question that requires a good mastery of content and a proper grasp of the text. Yeah, like I told you in one of the whole lessons, you need to see this text as a collection of windows. Yeah, and that's why I talked about the chunking model. Yeah, you look at this novel, you divide this novel into areas. You segment the novel into areas like we did in the hall. So concentrate on segments that can give possible questions. I mentioned the possible exact questions. So avoid segments that are narrating a stagnant thing, just a mere description of something. Like we have the segment on accommodation and arrangement and so forth. These are a bit stagnant, yeah? So you look for that segment that is guiding itself into a conflict. Yeah, that segment where characters are developing themselves, especially in a conversation or a discussion. Yeah. Of course, I talked about familiarizing yourself. For each segment, respond to questions to do with place the exact in its immediate concept. So as you read that segment, are you able to place it in its immediate context? That is outlining events leading to that exact. Are you able to outline events leading to the exact and even after the exact? Expect questions on character traits. So you already know what to expect when it comes to the exact question. Questions on character traits, questions on themes, grammar again and meaning of words, attitude, tone, and mood. So when we look at the mock exam, of course, we are looking at Dr. Afolabi's story in chapter 5. So maybe if you have your set book with you, you can refer to chapter 5, which is on page 66. We have the Path Alpha Travelers and their guide. We have the 4 Path Alpha Travelers. Then we have their guide, Dr. Afolabi. And so chapter 5 is based on Dr. Afolabi's story. Yeah, Dr. Afolabi's story, especially his personal life. So when you look at page 66 of chapter 5, it begins when Dr. Afolabi is invited, to give a keynote address at an annual conference. Yeah, he's invited by the Foundation for Democratic Rule in Washington. I have noted with great concern that most of you are referring to in Boston. We have, yes, 2 different settings. At first, he goes to Washington to give this keynote address. These are different states. So you make what we call a factual error, a textual error actually, a textual error when you talk about Dr. Afolabi going to Boston. Yeah, going to Boston to give a keynote address at an annual conference where he's invited by the Foundation for Democratic Rule. So it means that you don't have a clear grasp of the text. You're still struggling with grasping the text. When you talk about him being invited to Boston, at first he goes to Washington to give this address. Yeah, so that is actually the first part of his story in this chapter. He goes to Washington. He's in America. He goes to Washington at first, and then he later joins his wife in Boston to see his father-in-law. So the first part of the story is in Washington attending this conference. Yeah, and then the next part of it, Dr. Afolabi cites his lonely father-in-law while now in Boston, in his Boston trip on page 67. So we are looking at the mini episodes because so much happens before the divorce. We see quite a number of events. There are quite a number of segments before the divorce. So at first, we see that they are in America. The setting is in America. He's attending this conference in Washington, where he's expected to give a keynote address. And of course, later joins his wife in Boston. And in Boston, he cites his lonely father-in-law. Yeah, page 67. So you can, if you have your book, you can divide this chapter into segments. The first part just talk about Dr. Afolabi's keynote address in Washington. Page 66, Dr. Afolabi's keynote address. Then it is very important to use the titles of these characters when referring to them. Use their titles, because I'm concerned that you're simply talking about Afolabi or Abiola. You must use the character's title. If the character has a title, make sure you use it, Dr. Afolabi, not simply Afolabi or Abiola. Talk about Professor Kimani, not simply Kimani. So refer especially to the key characters by their titles. Engineer Saif Tahir, not simply Saif Tahir. You would be penalized in an exam by just like in the exam, in the mock exam. There is the question on, there is the first question that required you to talk about one of the characters, of course, using the titles, which you failed to do. Yeah, so it is important that you use the right titles when referring to these characters. Use the right titles, Professor Kimani, Dr. Afolabi, Engineer, and so on. When you look at the rest of the story, we have Dr. Afolabi citing his lonely father-in-law. This is another segment that, of course, brings out the theme of the plight of the elderly, or you can even talk about widows. Yeah, the plight of the widows, the challenges they face, like loneliness. You can imagine Pamela going to see her father after 6 years. Then again, because it is important that we also refer to some of the mistakes we had seen you make when answering exact questions. There is also that tendency, yes, another commonly made error of mixing up the pronouns. When you do that, you make what we call a factual error. Avoid making factual error by mixing up pronouns. When you say Pamela had gone to visit his father, because of that one word is, you are referring back to Pamela with a masculine pronoun. Everything else is considered wrong. If it was a 5 marks question, the minute the examiner notices that you have made a factual error by mixing up, referring to female characters by the wrong pronoun, you are heavily penalized. Everything else is disregarded. When you make a factual error, the other points are also wrong. So don't refer back to Pamela with the pronoun his, that Pamela had gone to visit his father. Pamela is a lady. So Pamela had gone to visit her father. So it is important to go through your answers. It is very important to go through your answers to correct this kind of errors. Because sometimes you may be writing your answer in a hurry and you end up making these factual errors that can cost you a big time. So Pamela had gone to visit her father, not his father. Then you talk about Pamela's father was a widower. Another factual error. Pamela's father, this is a man. So do we talk about men becoming widowers or widows? Which is which? Should we refer to Pamela's father as a widow or a widower? So the minute you talk about Pamela's father being a widower, again, it will attract a heavy penalty. Whatever else that comes up after that is disregarded. You have made a factual error. A factual error is costly. So be very, very careful with your usage of pronouns. Don't mix up the pronouns. Don't mix up the pronouns. So we have on page 67, Dr. Folabi citing his lonely father-in-law while on his Boston trip between page 67 and 69. So his encounter with his father-in-law when he goes to the store to buy a shaving razor. Yeah. And at the till, there's this old man engaging the cashier in a conversation. So that encounter with his father-in-law. Then from there, we have another mini segment where Dr. Folabi on page 70, I wish you would have if you have your text with you, you could mark these segments. Page 70, we have Dr. Folabi's encounter with a biracial toddler, with a biracial toddler that brings back memories of his desire to have children. He had wanted 2 children, He had wanted his own biological children. It is very important for plot development, this segment, this mini segment, his desire for his own biological children, while his wife had wanted to adopt children, not to really have biological. So they have this contradicting opinions when it comes to having children. Dr. Folabi prefers his own biological children, but his wife prefers to adopt children. They all have this hard stance when it comes to having children. This hard stance when it comes to having children. So we have that segment. Then after that, we have the next one where Dr. Folabi now meets on page 70 down there, the last paragraph. Dr. Folabi meets Tad Longway. Dr. Folabi meets Tad Longway. Tad Longway approaches him to be a Path Alpha guide while on the flight back to Nigeria from America. On the flight back, this is a segment that we have tested before. We've tested it in several exams, I think 2 exams. The conversation, the interaction between Dr. Folabi and Tad Longway. Yes. So that between page 70 to 74. So you should mark that. Then next, we now have the events leading to the separation and divorce. Now, before the divorce, when you, before now, after they have come back to Nigeria, we have where we have, Pamela's interaction with her houseboy, Issa. Pamela's interaction with her houseboy, Issa. And this is what was tested in the exam. This is what I would want us to pay attention to. Pamela's interaction with her houseboy, Issa. So we are looking at the events leading to the divorce. It just doesn't happen. What are the events leading to the divorce? So On coming back from the America trip, they're back in Nigeria on page 75. This Isa is being referred to as boy. Yeah, page 75. We have page 75, you can mark there, where we have Pamela's interaction with Isa, her houseboy. Yeah, encounter with Isa. So they are back. So we can maybe now pay attention to the questions for the exam in the mock exam, because that is what you are required to do, to take you through the revision of the mock exam. So I want to assume that, let me maybe remind you where the excerpt begins, so that if you have your text, or maybe the question paper, I'm not sure if you have the question paper, but on page 75, the last paragraph, let's now drop all this from that point. That is where the excerpt begins. That is where it begins. Let's not drop page 75, the last paragraph. Yeah, it begins there. Yeah, all the way to, go to the next page. The next page, if you have your text with you, go to page 77, 76, then 77. 76, then 77. The excerpt ends on page 77. The man pressed his advantage. Abiola, better tell scared white woman you call wife what brave fighter I be, he said. Yeah, Eckley again in English for her benefit. Up to that point, that marks the end of our excerpt for the mock exam. That marks the end of our excerpt. So in the interest of time, I may not be able to read the excerpt, or to even, but I want to believe you have the excerpt with you, or even the text with you. So you can go to page 75, the last paragraph, all the way to page 77, the second paragraph, which marks the end of our excerpt. Again, some of the commonly tested excerpt questions, place this excerpt in its immediate context. So this episode where we see Pamela confronting Isa. So why is Isa grabbing Pamela's hand? Because page 75, the boy grabbed Pamela's left hand. Because our excerpt begins at the end of that page. So it means anything that comes before that paragraph, yeah, anything that comes before that paragraph is very important in answering the question and placing the excerpt in its immediate context. It will be considered as some of the events leading to our excerpts. So we have the events leading to our excerpt, and they are right there on page 75, from where we have the boy grabbed Pamela's left hand with both of his hands. From that point up to the paragraph just before the excerpt, anything that you point out that is within that part of the passage can be given for placing the excerpt. What happens before? Yeah, it would be considered when it comes to now narrating what happens before the excerpt, because placing the excerpt in its immediate context means you mention what happens just before the excerpt and then after the excerpt. So just before our excerpt here, we have that confrontation between Isa and, Isa, Pamela's houseboy. Isa and Pamela, yeah? Isa is Pamela's houseboy. So that confrontation, such that even Dr. Folabi is forced to intervene. Yeah, at a point, he's forced to intervene after the excerpt. So you have to talk about it. So you are supposed to talk about Isa had grabbed Pamela's hand, asking her not to go to her room. Yeah, why doesn't Isa want Pamela to go to her room? Because there was a person in the room that Pamela would not have liked to see. Yeah, there's a person in that room. So Isa is trying to stop Pamela from going into her room because there is somebody there. Yeah, and Pamela is wondering who is there. Yeah, and Isa insists that it is not a burglar. Yeah, and Pamela is asking Isa. Yeah, Pamela thinks that Issa had forgotten that she was coming from America and invited a friend over. And Issa is like denying inviting his friend. So there is that push and shove between Pamela and her houseboy. Yeah. So we have that, confrontation between where Issa is really trying to stop his madam from entering her room because there is somebody there that she would not like to see. Then we have the excerpt. Yeah, we have the excerpt. You have it with you, you can read. Then after the excerpt, immediately after the excerpt, what happens? Yeah. So after the excerpt, we have now part of the of what happens after the excerpt has to do with Pamela's encounter with Femi. Yeah. Femi is Dr. Afolabi's cousin, page 76. Yeah. Dr. Afolabi's cousin is there. Yeah. His name is Femi. He's the one who has brought Nimbo. Yeah. So Pamela's encounter with Femi begins on page 76 all the way to page 77. Yeah. And Femi is being referred to as the man because at first Pamela doesn't seem to know him. It is later that Dr. Afolabi reveals his identity. Yeah. Yeah. So we have, what would you say when it comes to after the excerpt? Pamela reminds the man that he is in her house because the man is disrespectful and she's demanding to be respected. Yeah. And she's asking this man, who are you? And Dr. Afolabi at a point speaks to the man in Yoruba. Yes. Remember that, Pamela is not African. She's not Nigerian. Yeah. She's a white woman. So suddenly Dr. Afolabi is now code switching. So of course, Pamela is suspicious. Why code switch? This is not something that Dr. Afolabi does. Suddenly he's code switching to Yoruba. Yeah. And and Pamela asks, she accuses Dr. Afolabi for knowing the man. She's shocked that Afolabi knows the man because Afolabi is speaking to the man in Yoruba. So Dr. Afolabi requests to explain how who the man is, and Pamela is so angry. Yeah. And Dr. Afolabi admits that the man is his cousin and so forth. So up to that point, you're really supposed to give up to the end of page 77. Don't go past 77. Remember that for this question, you're supposed to narrate events just before and just after the excerpt. So you shouldn't exceed at least 3 paragraphs of what happens after. Up to 3 paragraphs, at most 3 paragraphs of what happens after the excerpt. Yeah. Yes. So that is for the question on immediate context. Then the next question is a question on your knowledge of the rest of the text. So it means that you must have read the text and grasped the whole of it, because you can be given a question that touches on the rest of the text. You can be given a question. So it means that you must understand the flow of events. It is important for you to understand the flow of events, because I was giving you the segments for this chapter. I've already talked about Pamela's encounter with Femi. Then page 78, Pamela encounters Nimbo. Yeah. Pamela encounters Nimbo. Then page 79, Pamela confronts Abiola. You see, you have to understand this flow of events, the events leading to the divorce. The divorce is the final thing. Yeah. The conflict is heightened when Pamela confronts Abiola. Yeah. That is where the conflict between Pamela and Dr. Abiola is heightened. So it is after confronting Dr. Abiola that eventually we see Pamela filing for divorce on page 81. So events leading to the divorce. So when you look at question 2, from your knowledge of the rest of the text, give the reasons why Dr. Abiola and Pamela were in America. Why were they in America? 4 marks. So you're supposed to talk about they are both, these are two characters. Why was, in short, you talk about why Abiola is in America and also Pamela. Yeah. In Kiswahili, we would say anadandia hii ride ya America. Why does she do it? Yeah. There is Dr. Abiola. So when you're looking at Dr. Abiola, why is he in America? So Dr. Abiola had been invited by Foundation for Democratic Rule in Washington. That's the first thing when you read chapter 5. So that's the first paragraph, page 66. You should have mentioned that Dr. Afolabi had been invited by Foundation for Democratic Rule in Washington. 1 mark for that. And it is important for you to mention the setting. You don't just say Dr. Afolabi had been invited by Foundation for Democratic Rule. Where? The setting matters. In Washington, I have said many of you were talking about Boston, and that is a textual error. The conference is in Washington, not Boston. Get your facts right. Then the second point, why was he in Washington? Yeah, why had he been invited by Foundation? And you must get that organization's name right. Many of you were giving very funny organization names. It was Foundation for Democratic Rule. Some of you are talking about Federal for Democracy. It's Foundation for Democratic Rule. So Dr. Afolabi had been invited by Foundation for Democratic Rule in Washington. Number 2, what was he to do? To give a keynote address at an annual conference. It's an annual conference. Yeah, he's been invited there to give a keynote address. Yeah, a keynote as an advisor to the Summit of Heads of State. He's been invited there to give a keynote address at an annual conference. Then now you look from Pamela's perspective. Why is she in Washington? Why did she? Not Washington, but Boston. Pamela goes to Boston to see her father. So Pamela had gone to visit her father, a widow. That is very important to mention that her father is a widow, is a lonely man. She's been away from. Then the other point, whom she had not seen for over 6 years. So the marking points, Pamela had gone to see her father, a widow. If you leave it at her father, your answer is incomplete. You have to mention that her father is a widow, is a desolate man, is lonely. Yeah, her father a widow. That is what necessitates her visit. This is a man who has been alone for 6 years, whom he had not seen for over 6 years. Now, for this answer, I have already mentioned that many of you are making factual errors, referring back to Pamela with the pronoun his, referring to her father with the noun widower. Yeah, widower. We have masculine and feminine nouns and pronouns. Be very keen when you're using them. Then question 2, identify and illustrate 2 stylistic features employed in this excerpt. So we have a dialogue, we have repetition. We will, of course, go through that when you're back in details. Vivid description, yeah, the use of vivid description. When you look at your excerpt, if you have it with you, look at vivid description. We have onomatopoeia, roared, yeah. We have a sarcasm, that white woman you call your wife, that is sarcasm, yeah. We have, we have non-standard English. We have, that English that Isa is using. We call it the use of non-standard English. Onomatopoeia, we have vivid description. And ensure that you illustrate your answer. Now, again, we advised you to write in paper 2, write as much as you can. The question is identify and illustrate 2 stylistic features employed in this exam. You see, you can give even 3, even 4, and you will not be penalized. You stand a higher advantage when you give more features, so that if the first 2 are incorrect, the examiner can pick the rest. The examiner is required to mark every single word you write as an answer. Nothing should be left unmarked. So the more you write, the more you have of scoring. So that in case some of your stylistic features, if you only limit yourself to 2 and they are both incorrect, you see the examiner has no other alternative to choose from. But if you have at least 4 and 2 of them are incorrect, the examiner will still be required to look at the other alternatives you have given there. So I keep saying that paper 2 is unlike paper 1. Paper 1, you have to strictly go by the number of points required. But paper 2, the more you write, the more your chances of scoring. So if you have been told to write 2 features, write even 4. So that if you have given wrong features, if 2 of them are wrong, the examiner can choose from the others, can still score the others. Then we have the other question. What is the role of ISA? Now, question on role. This is a question that we have tested before, and we are very disappointed with the kind of answers we are getting when it comes to now this question. The question is not asking who ISA is. Yeah, why? What is the significance of using the character of ISA in the story, in the text? Why has the author used the character of ISA? Yeah, what does ISA develop? So what the author uses ISA to develop something. When you're given this question, look at it from 3 angles: developing characters, developing themes, developing plot. And even developing, in fact, it's 4 angles: developing characters, developing themes, developing style, and developing plot. Any question to do with the role of somebody, a character is used to develop either that character or other characters, most of the time to develop other characters. A character is used to develop the plot. A character is used to develop other stylistic features and even to develop themes. So you have to point them out and you have to vary your answers. Don't just look at one angle. When it comes to this question, don't just talk about developing characters. Yeah, you have to look at the other angles. Apart from character, that is just one angle. Which are the other areas that are developed? You have to touch on theme, style, and plot. So when you look at Isa, Isa develops the character of Pamela. Pamela as a cautious person. Pamela is seen to be cautious or vigilant. When Pamela tells Isa not to let anyone into the house, she had told Isa not to let anyone into the house, least of all into her bedroom, while she was in America, while Master and she were in America. That shows that Pamela is cautious or vigilant. So Isa develops the character of Pamela as cautious. So you have to be very, very particular in your answer, very specific. This, who is developed? It is Pamela. Isa helps to develop the character of Pamela. What trait is developed? And then you give an illustration. So your answer must be well explained. Then again, when you're still looking at character, Isa develops the character of Dr. Afolabi, yeah, as violent, yeah. When Dr. Afolabi seizes Isa's arm and tightens his grip, yeah, until he hollers with pain, yeah, you can talk about developing his character as violent, yeah. Afolabi is seen to be violent or aggressive, yes. Then Isa also develops the character of Afolabi as threatening. Afolabi is threatening to break Isa's arm. I'll break this thing. So developing Dr. Afolabi's character as threatening. Dr. Afolabi is seen to be threatening. Isa develops the character of Dr. Afolabi as concerned. Dr. Afolabi is seen to be concerned, to be caring. When Isa wouldn't answer Pamela's question, Dr. Afolabi jumps in to help his wife, Pamela. So he is clearly concerned for the wife. Then when it comes now to Isa develops themes. Which themes? theme of conflict. You expound on it. Issa develops the theme of female assertiveness in his interaction with Pamela. Pamela is seen to be assertive. She's demanding for answers. It brings out the theme of female assertiveness. It is developed through this character. Through this character, the theme of place of women in the society. Yeah, the place of women in the society. Family ties. So these are some of the themes that Issa enhances. Yeah. Then you talk about stylistic features that are enhanced by the character of Issa, such as repetition. For example, gave no answer. Yeah. Another style, dialogue. Conversation between Afolabi and Dr. Afolabi and Issa. Conversation between Pamela and Issa. Dialogue is enhanced, is developed as a style. Suspense is also developed. Yeah, Issa is not willing to reveal who is in the bedroom. We are wondering who is there. So suspense as a style is also developed through the character of Issa. And then when it comes to now to plot development, Issa develops the plot of the excerpt. He was told not to let anybody in the house, least of all into Pamela and Dr. Afolabi's bedroom, but he let the man in the house, another person in the bedroom. Yeah. So the conflict in this excerpt happens because of his disobedience. His disobedience. He's seen to be disobedient. So for plot development. So this is a question we have tested before, a question touching on the role of a character. Look at it from those 4 angles. The character is used to enhance the plot, to enhance themes, to enhance styles, to enhance character traits. And you should clearly point out at a particular trait or a particular theme, style, and so on, and illustrate it for you to score. What shows that the man has a scornful attitude towards Pamela? Attitude can be scornful. Illustrations. He asks Pamela who he was, deliberately turns his back on her in disdain. When Pamela asks him who he was, instead of answering her, he speaks to her husband instead. Yeah, the man intentionally speaks to Dr. Afolabi in Yoruba to make her even more angry. Yeah. So we have so many points. The man intimidates Pamela by telling her that he's a brave fighter. So he's seen to intimidate Pamela. He has no respect for Pamela. Yeah. When he tells Dr. Afolabi that this is the woman you call wife, a sarcastic tone, and he's seen to be sarcastic. This is the woman you call wife. Yeah. Then explain the man's mission. Femi's mission. What is his mission? This is Dr. Afolabi's cousin. Femi, what is his mission? One, the man the man's mission is one, to bring a girl. His mission was to bring a girl, Nimbo. The girl's name is Nimbo, to Dr. Afolabi. And 2, as his second wife. The marking points mention that the man had brought a girl, Nimbo, to Dr. Afolabi as his second wife. Yeah. And he had been instructed by people back at home. He had received instructions back at home in the village to bring Nimbo to Dr. Afolabi as his second wife. Why? Why does the whole village or people back in the village want Dr. Afolabi to have a second wife? Because Pamela could not have any children of her own. Because Pamela could not, they assume Pamela is barren. Yeah, she could not, they believe she cannot have children of her own. So they bring a second wife, Nimbo, to be Dr. Afolabi's wife, second wife, to bear Dr. Afolabi children. But Pamela's background, especially being a white woman, she cannot stand that. Female assertiveness. That is why she files. Eventually, she files for a divorce. This is something that she cannot accept. She cannot accept to be in a polygamous marriage. So you can also mention because Pamela hates children. Yeah, Pamela would want to adopt children. So the reason why Femi is there, yeah, is so that to bring Nimbo, yeah, as directed by the people back in the village, to Dr. Folabi as his second wife. As her second wife, rather. Remember, I have said, if you say to bring Nimbo as his, that makes the rest of your points are considered incorrect when you mess up at that point. So as her second wife, not his second wife. Then we have a question, a grammar question, a question tag. Please go away. This is an imperative sentence. Please go away, whoever you are. So for this kind of sentences, imperative sentences, we use will. We introduce the verb will as the auxiliary verb to introduce the tag will. Will you please go away? Will you? And it should be positive. It's a different sentence. It's an imperative sentence. So this one is goes in the class of exceptions. When a sentence is in imperative, even if the statement is negative or positive, the tag will always be positive. Will you will always be positive for imperative sentences. And for this one, which is like a request, we have will you. So you have to rewrite your sentence. If you don't, you're not awarded. Rewrite your sentences. Then ensure that you punctuate the tag correctly. There should be a comma before the tag and a question mark after it. So make sure that you then the vocabulary, gibberish, nonsense, or rubbish, reasserted or reaffirmed. That marks the end of my session. I have eaten into Madam Watere's session. I hope Madam Watere is supposed to take you through poetry and grammar. We started late. So I think we are going to take up some of your minutes, maybe 20 or so, Madam Watere.
Yes.
I don't know. Yes, Madam Watere, kindly continue.
Thank you very much, Madam Gadigira, for taking us through those two questions. The session was quite insightful. I believe that all the learners have taken notes on the things that we have been told. This paper being concerned with literary appreciation, you have been given very good tips, very good ones that cut across even the paper, the question that we are looking at the moment, the question on poetry. So we really appreciate Madam Gadingira. And so I believe that all of us are ready to do the poetry. Our favorite. Poetry is quite artistic. So it will take us from the written literature, the set book, and now we are here for verses. So the verse is displayed on our screen. I believe that we can see it very clearly. And the title of our poem is The Bird. And when you get to that exam room and find a poem with a title, that is a highway. That is an indicator. This is the direction we are going to. We have students who have an attitude with poetry. You feel like it has a very complicated meaning behind what you are seeing. But I would like to encourage all of us to look at poetry just at the surface of it. Like you are reading a comprehension. And once you get to have some styles like similes, metaphors, try to see the effectiveness of the same. Why are they used? Because if anything, that would be the inferred meaning behind the surface meaning. Otherwise, don't go digging deep into poetry, searching for things which are not there, but appreciate what you can see, read it, and understand it. So generally, there are questions which we always expect in poetry. And even before we go to the questions themselves, how do you go analyzing a poem? How do you start eating a poem? I have said the first thing is a title. When the title is there, we are talking about the bird. Get that, have that curious mind. What has the bird done? What happened to this bird? Is it an actual bird or it is an inferred bird? What is it about the bird that the poet want to talk about? Then from there, think about who is speaking in this poem, and that takes us to the persona. You must know who is speaking for you to be able to appreciate the message in a poem. So the question of the persona, whether asked or not, will always be there to guide us. We'll always be able to know the direction the poem, again, is taking us when we get to know who is speaking. Is it an adult? Is it a child? Are we looking at this poem from a beggar's perspective? Are we looking at the poem from a parent's perspective? Is it a parent who is talking about their children? Is it a student perspective who is addressing the many subjects they do in the school? Is it the school itself, which is talking about the students and their behaviors? Who is this that is speaking? Then from there, after you have known, then what is it that this persona is addressing as far as the subject is concerned? And how do they feel about it? If it is a parent who is our persona, and the parent is talking about the children, what is the attitude? Is this parent complaining? The choice of word will tell us. Is it that the parent is complaining about the behaviors of the children? Is it that the parent is proud of the behavior of the children? Or is it that they are satisfied, they can't complain, they are okay with how things are running as far as their children is concerned? So that, again, we can't separate it from the persona. Think about it. So Madam Gadingira has really taken us deeply on issues to do with attitude, tone, and mood. These are things we should always be expecting in a poem. You will be asked a question on either attitude, tone, or mood. And I can't go again back to talk about what Madam Gatigira has already told us, because I believe that we were all very attentive. She brought it out very clearly that attitude, you have to think about the feelings, the mood, you have to think about the general atmosphere. And so that one has laid a very soft landing for us as far as poetry is concerned. So those are things which you should always be expecting as far as poem is concerned. Then we have also meaning of sentences, phrases, and even the lines. That one, I've never seen a question on poetry without such kind of a question, whereby you are given some few lines and then you are told to give the meaning of those lines. Remember, when we are doing comprehension, when we are doing the second question, which is the excerpt, the examiner can pick one line only, or one word, sorry, not a line, one word. Like the previous question, we are told, reasserted, that is one word. Gibberish, that is one word. But when it comes to poetry, you'll find that the examiner will take a line and then ask you, or even two, and then ask you the meaning of those lines. What does the examiner want in such kind of a question? They want to see your interpretation. How have you interpreted the poem? Because poetry is a whole genre of literature which communicates so much. It communicates equally what a novel can communicate in 300 pages and do it in just 4 or even 3 verses, meaning that the word which is chosen as far as poetry is concerned is the exact meaning, intended meaning the poet wants to communicate. So there is no room for vivid description, there is no room for explanation of actions and all that. It is just one word and it takes a whole meaning. So when the examiner gives us lines to give the meaning of the same, they want to see, have we interpreted this poem the way they wanted the meaning to come out? Have you known the intention of the poet, and have you been able to interpret it the way it should have been? So simply you paraphrase. This is where paraphrasing comes in. So therefore, we can't afford to have very few words, and then you also bring the meaning of 2 words with 1 word. Like you pick and you say, for instance, if you look at the first, if you look at our first stanza there, on Wednesday morning, while weeding our father's rose farm, my brother and I found a bird frail and breeding from a wood. Then we ask, can you give the meaning of my brother and I found a bird frail and breeding from a wood? Whatever we expect you to do is, how have you interpreted these 2 lines? Don't just say that the brother and the persona found a bird, and then you go to the next question. No, you must expound. Tell us, use your own word, paraphrase, and tell us, this is what I have understood. And therefore, that paraphrase cannot be anything less than what we have here. And so that one we should always be keen on. We also have language use. We have language use questions where we can be told to rewrite, or we can be told to change. But then the most common are just the meaning of lines as used in the poem. We don't have so much grammar of it, but then we can be given words such as change into passive, change into active, add a question tag, and so forth and so on. Rewrite beginning with this, meaning that they want to check something on something like gerunds, how you apply gerunds. Also participle phrases. Can you be able to put a participle phrase, and so forth and so on. So having said so, I want us to look at our poem and the questions which we have been given. And because the poem is not long, I want to read the poem for us, and then we go to the questions. The Bird by Thomas Hare. On Wednesday morning, while weeding our father's rose farm, my brother and I found a bird, frail and bleeding from a wood. My bro caught the bird, gave it to my small sister. She nursed it. She nursed, fed it. Strong and more beautiful it became. One fine morning, after feeding it well, the bird flew away into the thick forest, never to return again. Greedy and thankful lovers, accorded great care by their suitors. Once they are full, they flee, leaving their lovers in pain and nostalgia. Be careful. Be careful, I insist. So, here we go. What is this poem all about? The brother on one Wednesday morning while weeding our father's rose farm, my brother and I. So from those 3 words, we can be able to know who is the persona. We have talked about the persona being a person who is talking about their own experiences, or the persona can be an observant who is reporting about other people's experiences. So a persona who is an observer is not part of the experience, but they are reporting what they can see happening to other people, and therefore they come and tell us, they report to us, and that is what we call observing our persona who is an observer. Then we have another kind of a persona who is now part of the experience. They are not observing from a distance. They are part of it. There is a bird which is found. He is among those people who found the bird. So who is this persona? Who is this persona? By saying my brother and I, so you can see that we have some sibling relationship here. We have a sibling relationship. Also, we have another relationship, sibling relationship, where they caught that bird and gave it to my small sister. She nursed, fed it. So again, by looking at that, you see that still this is a brother to a certain girl here. So all the way to the end, we can be able to see that this is a young man who has a brother and also a small sister. And together they are in this kind of experience, because one, it is the brother and the persona who found the bird. Look at the condition of the bird. It was frail, we are told. It was breeding from a wood. So this bird was not strong. It was frail. It was weak. It was breeding. It had a wood. Then what do they do? What do they do with this bird? So the siblings caught the bird, gave it to their small sister. And when the small sister was given this bird, what did she do with it? Remember, in our first stanza, we are told the bird was weak, frail. So it is in a situation where it needed help. And therefore, when we find this persona and the brother taking it to the sister who nursed it, fed it, and how did it become? It became strong and more beautiful. Strong and more beautiful is what it became. So it has been nursed back to good health. It was frail, it was broken. But when they get it, they are able to take it to the sister who did this work on it. So up to that point, we can get to know what kind of people we are interacting with. Because this one, a poem, just like any other literary work, a poem is meant to instill morals. We uphold virtues here. We uphold morals as we condemn vices and every other bad behavior which the society could point at and say it is immoral. So here we can be able to look at this now, the three of them, the siblings, and we can be able to give them a character trait. We can see them having found some bird which is weak, and they did not go ahead and break it further. What they did is that they took care of them, their bird. So these fellas, the three of them, we can see that they are a bit caring. They are very caring. We can't fail to see that they are concerned. They are concerned in that they found a bird which needed assistance, which needed help. And what did they do? They did not just leave it. They carried and nursed it. They carried it and nursed it. So we are dealing with very good people here. We are dealing with people who have sound morals. They have virtues. They are caring and they are concerned. Okay, let us continue analyzing our poem. So our bird has become strong and more beautiful. Remember how it was. It was frail. It was bleeding from a wound. So it was weak. It was frail. It was haggard, and meaning that it didn't have food. So it was haggard. It didn't look well. But when it was nursed, how did it become strong and more beautiful? So it is now able to fly. And so after it became strong and beautiful, what happened to it? Did it stick around and also become useful to the siblings? Did it become useful in that family? Let us see what the bird did. One fine morning, after feeding it very well, one fine morning, after feeding it well, now it has been given food for the morning, good breakfast, and even before then, it has been well fed, regaining its health. Let's see what it does. The bird flew away into the thick forest. Can you imagine? Look at what it did. It flew away into the thick forest, never to return again. Allah, it has disappeared. Remember the frail bird. Very frail, very weak. Now it has become beautiful. What has it done? It has gone back away into the forest, never to return again. Let us look at the punch stanza here. The last stanza says, greedy, unthankful lovers, accorded great care by their suitors. Once they are full, they flee, leaving their lovers in pain and nostalgia. Be careful. Be careful, my friend. That is what we are being told now. So the bird has been brought closer home. So look at this bird now. The bird that we found very frail there, which needed assistance, now it has been accorded great care. It was very frail, now it is beautiful and strong. And then now the bird is full, they just flee. So this is what happens. So the last stanza now gives us a different insight. We were thinking about a bird all along. Now our eyes have been opened wider. Those people who have been thinking about a bird now, you can be able to see other things other than birds. And these other things are called unthankful lovers. They are accorded great care by their suitors. Look at the sister who is feeding. Look at the sister who has nursed the bird back to beauty, to strength. And then what happens? Meaning that when the lovers are left in pain, there was some kind of attachment. So the bird had been taken as part of the family. The bird was being taken care of to be part of that caring family. Remember, we said that the siblings that we found there at the beginning of our poem were siblings who had virtues. They were caring, they were loving, they were concerned. And so when they brought in this bird, this unthankful lover, they wanted to integrate the bird, the lover, into the family, and therefore they tried their best to nurse, to take care. But then what happens? When they are okay, when they feel they are strong, they can just do what the bird has done. They have gone into the thick forest. And when we talk about the thick forest, it means that the forest is so thick that you can't be able to locate this bird anymore. And it will never return again. So it has gone to show off whatever energy, whatever beauty it has, thanks to the good siblings who took care of it. Yeah, so that is our poem. If you look at it, the way we have done it, you can see that there is that general meaning, the surface one. The surface meaning is simply a bird. Talk about a bird which was wounded, and then the brother took it to the sister, and the sister took care of it, and then it became healthy. It became, after it had been nursed, it became strong and even more beautiful. And then what did it do? One fine morning, it just flew away without returning, never to return again. So when you do that, we can see that we have the surface meaning with us. At times, we can now concentrate on our last stanza here, and then we talk about what the inferred meaning would be. That we could be talking about lovers who are unthankful. They are taken in when they are broken, when they are desperate, when they need to be taken care of. And once they are satisfied, when they are healed, when they feel energetic, then what do? They just leave the suitors alone and they go on their way. And these people are left in pain and nostalgia, meaning they are left thinking about the good times they had shared, and they are not very happy about it. So you invite somebody who is broken, you yourself, you are not broken, then they come and break you, because when they have healed, they leave. But what happens? The person who was nursing them, who is being called now the suitor, is left broken, because when you are in pain, you are broken, and you have nostalgia. You're thinking about the moments that you had shared previously. So let us go to our questions. We have our question here, and we are told that in not more than 3 sentences, we explain what the poem is about. And we have 3 marks there. So in not more than 3 sentences. And I've said that here we can approach our poem literally, the literal meaning, just a bird and nothing else. We don't mention the lover. So we can say the poem is about someone who, together with his brother, rescued an injured bird. They gave the bird to the sister who nursed and fed it. Now that will be a second point. When you talk about someone and his brother who rescued an injured bird, that is where our first marking point will be. They gave the bird to the sister who nursed and fed it. That will be our second marking point. Then one day the bird flew away, leaving them sad. He wants people to be careful of such characters. So you see that the poem is just simply about that. The brother getting an injured bird, goes to the home, takes it to the sister, and the sister nurses and feeds it, and then the bird disappears later after it has been well fed, leaving the characters sad. They have lost. So that is a surface meaning. What if we decide now to approach it from a different way, so that we now pay attention to the last stanza? What do we do? Yes. So we can say that the poem is about people who come to rescue needy and vulnerable people. Yes. So they rescue needy and vulnerable people, meaning that the issue of a rescued and injured bird, we now bring it down to needy and vulnerable people. Then what happens? They provide their immediate needs. So this aspect of the now sister feeding and nursing the bird, we talk about it as providing the needs of these people. Whatever had made them vulnerable. Is it the food that they lacked? Is it the shelter? What is it that that these fellas who are injured, what is it that they lacked? They are provided for. And then what happens? They later move on when they are well provided for, leaving their suitors to lament, or the people taking care of them lamenting. They are complaining. They are in pain. They feel they have been taken for granted. They have been used. So either way, you approach it from the surface or the literal meaning, we are good with it. You go deeper and talk about now a person who is needy and vulnerable. We were going also to consider that. So you see that poetry, you can just look at the surface meaning without scratching your head so much to see what could have been the inferred meaning. Then we look at the second question, which is trying to talk about illustration. 4 illustrations, 4 instances of illustration. So this one, I believe, those people who tackled paper 1, they talked about it, about alliteration and how we identify alliteration and how we illustrate it. So we don't just pick words and then leave them bare. So you have to pick words which are alliterating, and then from there you underline the sounds which are alliterating. And I'm going to give you the words which we have here as alliterating ones. We have, the first one is one and Wednesday. One and Wednesday. I'll take you back to the poem here so that I can tell you exactly what I mean. So this is the word one, where the cursor is. I have highlighted the word one, and this is the other one. Wednesday. So the next word, which is Wednesday, is the word which I've said is alliterating with one. So one, Wednesday. So we are not concentrating on the O, letter O, or the W in Wednesday. We are concerned about the sound, which is the sound that comes out. One Wednesday, one Wednesday. So that is the first case of alliteration. Then we have while and weeding. The word while is there. I've highlighted it. I believe we can see it very clearly on our screens. While and weeding. While weeding. Wa. Then you can see the proximity. The words are very close to each other. So there is a close proximity. Then we have, and what you do is that you underline that which is alliterating. So we have another case of alliteration here. We have further. So we underline the far sound, the F letter F there, but we are concerned about the far sound. And then we have farm. So there is an instance of alliteration there. Then we have this found and frail. You can see that those two words have alliteration, found, frail. There is cross proximity, and you can see that the sound F, the sound far and far in frail and found are alliterating. So you underline the letters. But when you come to this, you can see that we have the word from here, but the proximity is not what we can call cross proximity. So we can't say that the word found and frail from are alliterating. I want you to look at the proximity. The words are quite a distance from each other. So alliteration, we are much concerned about proximity. Very important. Then we go below there, we'll find the word bad and bleeding. Still here, we have the word bad and bleeding. There is alliteration there. And then we also have small sister. Yeah, the words are here. Small and sister. Small and sister. There is alliteration there. And therefore, when you consider that, we were spoilt for choice. There were a lot of words which were alliterating. And the question demanded that we give 4 instances. 4 instances, meaning that each instance had a half a mark for them to give us 2 marks. So always, and you see the word was in bold, meaning that there were girls who were writing just 2. And you just look at the marks and then you go ahead and write 2. That was misguided. You misguided yourself and you ended up getting 1 mark only because each instance of alliteration was getting half a mark. So let us make sure that we read the question and take note of the keywords such as for and so forth and so on. Explain the extended metaphor in the poem. The extended metaphor. So when you talk about metaphor, what is a metaphor? Metaphor is direct comparison. Direct comparison is what is referred to as metaphor. And therefore, when you talk about extended metaphor, here we are interested with what could be this bird be compared to directly that, and the last stanza gives the answer. In fact, this poem was so easy. We were expecting 18 and 19 and 17. Even we had discussed and said the least we expect here is 16. But then the irony of it happened. But all the same, the last stanza gave us the extended metaphor. So even if you just copied the last stanza, you talk about the bird is being compared to their grateful lover. Yeah, that is the last stanza. It is just telling us, yes, all this, that was the extended metaphor. That everything up there was talking about a bird, but when we came here, we are talking about unthankful lovers, ungrateful lovers, people who will come, and when they have been provided for and they become strong, they move out and they leave the people, the host and the suitors in pain. So simply that is what that was all about. Describe the character trait of the bird. Hey, very easy. Very easy. Can you go back to stanza 1, to the last stanza? We have so many adjectives there. Greedy, unthankful. What else do we search for? Yeah. So a person who has been assisted and then they leave, even they don't say a simple thank you. What they do is that they leave their hosts in pain. They leave the suitors in pain. What kind of people are they? Those people are ungrateful. Those people are opportunists. They come broken, and when they get to be healed, what do? They just leave, meaning that they had taken, they were just opportunistic. They saw an opportunity where they can come and heal their injuries. And once they have been healed, what do? They just disappear. So if we had the guts to say this person is ungrateful, and then we illustrate how ungrateful this person is, because again, we don't just give traits and then we leave them like that. We don't do that, not even at this level, not when we have some few days to KCSE, that we just say ungrateful and move to the next question without illustrating. So we say that this person is ungrateful, then you have to come and tell us why. Greedy and thankful lovers accorded great care by their suitors. What do? Once they're full, they flee, meaning they just go away. Also, another one here, that one fine morning after feeding it well, the bird flew away into the thick forest, never to return again. That is ingratitude. So all this shows that this is they are ungrateful. If you want to talk about opportunists, then come all the way up here. Talk about found a bird frail and breeding from a wood. That person or that bird we said was desperate, was vulnerable. Then what happens? You come again and join that with what? One fine morning, after feeding it well, the bird flew into the thick forest, never to return again. That is an opportunist. You come broken, and then when you get to be strong, what do? You just get away, you run, and you are not seen. That is being ungrateful. Then the attitude. Now this is a question on the attitude, and as we said that Madam Carol talked about this exhaustively, and therefore we don't even go back and talk about what attitude means, but we can directly give. And as I was following our lesson very well, there is a trait which Madam Carol gave us and told us, and she mentioned it and told us that when somebody has done something wrong, it's like you are pointing a fault, that this is not what you should be doing. This is not what you should be doing. So when somebody does something wrong, then you must get a word which describes that attitude. So I want us to look at the question, because that question had 4 marks, meaning there a lot was expected from us, not just giving attitudes, 2 of them, and then move on. No, a lot is expected. So the questions and the marks distribution will always guide us and know there is a catch here. So with illustrations, describe the attitude of the persona towards his subject in the first and last stanza. So we are looking at two stanzas, the first and the last one. Then again, whose attitude? Because a question on attitude will always be asking us, who is it that is having this attitude and what are they having an attitude towards? You have attitude as a feeling. So this feeling in question, who is it that you are feeling about? So we are talking about the persona, who is said is among the siblings. What does the persona feel about his subject? The subject is the bird, because the persona is talking about the bird. So that is one thing. You identify whose attitude we want and towards who. So it is a persona towards the bird. Then we go on and say, it is in the first and the last stanza, meaning that there is a difference, there is a contrast in the first and the last. The way this person felt at the first stanza and then the last one are two different sort of feelings. So you see, when they found the bird frail and bleeding, there's something which they felt. They felt sympathy. So the first stanza, the persona is sympathetic towards the bird. So that is the first attitude. What about the last stanza? Is it still sympathetic? No. This bird has left. It has just left. And so it has left ungrateful and all that. So let's go back to the tone that Madam Carol told us. When somebody has done something wrong, then which is that attitude we talked about? Accusatory attitude. Because you are pointing at this is not what people do. When people nurse you, you don't just leave them. You don't just go. So the attitude in the first stanza is sympathetic. The last stanza is accusatory, that this bird did not do the right thing. Hivi si hivyo mtu afanyagi hivyo. So that is what is happening now. And I'm sure you have heard people saying, no, mtu afanyangi hivyo. Meaning that whatever you have now is what we call accusatory attitude. Anytime you find yourself telling anybody, ai, mtu afanyangi hivyo, always think about accusatory attitude, that you are pointing at, no, that's not what people should be doing. So again, now the catch here. The attitude in the first stanza and the last stanza, they are very different. They are contrasting. And so, can you bring out a contrasting word there? So, you must bring a contrasting word to join. So I could see girls who are answering this question. You write the first one, for instance. In the first stanza, the attitude is sympathetic. The last stanza, the attitude is accusatory. No, that's not the way you go about it. You had to contrast the two. So in the first stanza, the attitude of the persona towards his subject is pitiful or sympathetic. And then you give an illustration, found a bird and bleeding. You can go back there and see what kind of a bird is it. Found a bird frail and bleeding from a wood. So there is pity there. The last one, it is this one we have talked about. So you say, while in the last stanza, the attitude is accusatory, greedy and thankful. So first one, sympathetic. Last one, unthankful. Yes, we go to the next question. Who is the persona? We are talking about the persona. The persona, we have talked about the persona very much. And this is a young man who has found a frail bird bleeding while they were weeding their father's rose farm together with their brother. So it is a young man with their brother. A young man with a brother. Then we go to the next question. I told you this one, you have to get them. So this is language use. We are changing this into passive, leaving their lovers in pain and nostalgia. Whatever we found here is that you are not very keen on the subject. You are not very keen on the subject because when you have the subject, you must carry along any kind of modifier which they have, any kind of determiner that goes with it, whatever it is. For instance, leaving their lovers. You can see that their lovers, you can't separate their and lovers. So whenever you are moving lovers, don't forget also to move there. And that is where most of you went wrong. You started lovers, but they should be their lovers. So once we change it into passive, it should have been their lovers being left in pain and nostalgia. That's where we went wrong. Most of us left their lovers. We just wrote lovers. So any article that comes before a noun, any determiner, any quantifier, anything that comes before a noun, it has to be carried together with the noun. Don't leave it. Once you drop it, you have changed the meaning of the word. The bird flew away into the thick forest. Add a question tag. I never marked a wrong here. This shows that we have really mastered the question tags, where we rewrite I marked one wrong. There's a girl just one girl among the many papers. She did not rewrite the statement. She just wrote the tag. She just wrote, didn't it? That was wrong. We insist we rewrite the whole statement. So you rewrite, the bird flew away into the thick forest, comma, small letter, didn't it? Question mark. And it was well done. That one I can't complain. The meaning of the following lines as used in the poem. So I told you this is about interpretation. Meaning 1, when they are satisfied, they go. When they are satisfied, they go. That is what it simply means. Leaving their lovers in pain and nostalgia. What does it mean? Abandoning those they were in love with in suffering. So abandoning them in suffering. So you have to bring the word abandoning to show they are leaving them, and then pain and nostalgia, it is about suffering. Languages. Languages first instructions are rewrite the following sentences as instructed. Do not change the meaning. Jockey did not know it was a dangerous vocation. Did not know it was a dangerous vocation. Rewrite using how. Then I have the answer here. The question is displayed there. So the answer should have been, Jockey did not know how dangerous the vocation was. Jockey did not know how dangerous the vocation was. You could also have said, Jockey did not know how dangerous a vocation it was. How dangerous a vocation it was. Someone saw Kiremi leaving the plane in Khartoum. Begin with Kiremi. Yes. The answer should have been, Kiremi was seen leaving the plane in Khartoum by someone. Never be attempted to separate the sentence in this manner. I saw many students who are doing so. Don't say someone, Kiremi was seen by someone. No, don't separate that statement the way it should be. Don't say Kiremi was seen by someone leaving the plane. No, no, no. It should be Kiremi was seen leaving the plane in Khartoum. If you have to add by someone, it should come at the end. And I've insisted, never be attempted to put something like Kiremi was seen leaving the plane by someone in Khartoum or whichever. That tag by someone or by whoever, it should never appear anywhere in the middle of the sentence. She opened the window and a bat flew out. End in a bat. So she opened the window and out flew a bat. She opened the window and out flew a bat. There were others who had instructions as you start with a bat. And it should have been simply a bat flew out when she opened the window. A bat flew out when she opened the window. So here we have vocabularies, living in the dash. So here we could consider two answers which are derived from the word industry. We could say that living the industrial or industrialized. industrial or industrialized part of the town can be very distressing. The student was punished for treating the old lady. The word is respect. So when you say the word is respect and the student is punished, meaning it is the negative form of the word respect. It can't be anything positive. So the student was punished for treating the old lady disrespectfully with double L and Y. The mock examination analysis with SIS, not SES. It is SIS. The mock examination analysis has been completed. Then we have some Form 2 content there, order of adjectives. Can people go and revise on order of adjectives? Note that we start with quantity, opinion, size, shape, age, color, origin, material, purpose. That is the order. Let's go back to our notes and look at the order of adjectives. And we always start with opinion, then we go to facts. Meaning that when we say opinion, we can say something like boring, handsome, but then whatever follows the opinion must be facts. Size is a fact. It is big, it's big. Everybody will say it's big. Shape is a fact. It is rectangle, it is rectangle. That's a fact. Age, it is either new or old or young. That's a fact. So anything that is not opinion must follow all the other adjectives of opinion. So we go to our first one. It should have been, I enjoyed carrying my heavy rectangular metallic box. And there should be no commas, my friend. You see that the examiner gave you commas there. It was meant to confuse you. Those people who don't know how to omit commas in the answers, that is where you are gotten. You don't separate them with commas, and note that. Every time you are giving orders of adjectives, let it be word, word, word. Heavy rectangular metallic box every time you open and close school. Magoha married an intelligent, intelligent now is an opinion, an intelligent young American. Intelligent young American. Buy me a reasonably cheap, big purple. Cheap, big purple. Cheap is opinion, big is size, purple is color, in that order. Form 2 work on collective nouns. No, this is Form 1 work. We wanted to jog you back to the Form 2. The cargo arrived at the port. The cargo arrived at the port in a fleet of ships. FLEET, fleet. The teacher talked to a bevy of girls. Bevy is BEVY, bevy of girls. Again, from the bunch I marked, it is just one girl who got the word bevy. Just one girl from Form 4 Zeta. All the others from other classes, a few samples. Nobody got the word bevy. Let's go back to Form 1 work. A troop of monkeys attacked the leopard. Troop is TROOP. Don't be tempted to say TROUPE. That is a different meaning. The meaning for a troop of monkeys is TROO. We have phrasal verbs here. That is our last question on phrasal verbs. And every time you have such questions on phrasal verbs, we should always rewrite. You should always rewrite the sentence to make sure that it is grammatically correct, and even the numbers, the past, they agree. So that, for instance, if you look at the second answer, Kipkorir takes after, meaning that the word which you'll put there, it should also be in simple present tense. It must take an S, meaning if you omit that S, you are wrong. So to make up is to recover or compensate. Recover or compensate. Takes after is to resemble. And you should say Kipkorir resembles his grandfather. Kipkorir resembles his grandfather. And finally, the project has really eaten into my savings. Eaten into, it should be consumed. The project has really consumed my savings, not spent. It is consumed, not exhausted. It should be consumed. We are going for the most appropriate word here. Yeah. So that said and done, we have come to the end of our session. We have successfully revised question 1, 2, 3, and 4 of our paper 2 mock 2024 exam, your last mock in Maryhill. And now we anticipate that once we meet physically, we shall be a step ahead of anybody who did not attend our sessions. And even when you meet them, just encourage them to attend our online classes. It is very advisable that we have that interactive session for the sake of our KCSE. I wish you well. I thank Madam Gazingira who took us the first session. Let me thank Mr. Dr. Karaoke, our host, who ensured that there was order in our class. Thank you very much. And with that, I wish you a very good weekend. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you, team. Thank you, team, for taking us through that very captivating session. I actually enjoyed, and I want to really think also our student has gained the same. So, ladies of substance, I want to appreciate you today. You've been so cooperative, so nice. But now I can see the attendance has gone down. Kindly let us encourage one another. This is a one thing time. Preparing for KCSE, we don't have rehearsals. Let us do our best. I don't know that there is somebody who can close because of the good moment we had this day. I don't know that there is somebody who can close with a word of prayer. Is it Kong or who? Yes, it is good to thank God. Yes, Kongo.
Excuse me, Chair.
Oh, there's a question, Madam, before you go.
Yes, there's a question.
I can see there are 3 questions. It's okay.
Right.
Okay, excuse me, Chair.
Yes.
When you are doing alliteration, you highlighted some words of which they were not in close proximity because when you are taught alliteration, you are told that we should watch out for nouns, the content words, the nouns, the verbs, the adverbs, and the adjectives.
Right.
So how is kindly scroll up.
Okay. There.
For fathers and farm. I think rose is a noun. So those words can't be alliterating.
Okay. Yeah, so thank you very much for that concern. I know this has come up severally in several classes. I've also heard so. But once we sit down, especially when we are coming to teach you in the hall, be very attentive on how we do. You know, sometimes in various classes, there can be some kind of difference in approach. But the very moment we meet in the hall, listen to the voice of the teachers. That is a coordinated approach. That this mock was coordinated by all the teachers in the department, and we agreed that we cannot be talking about the nouns and the adverbs and all that, because proximity is how close are they. Remember, alliteration brings raising. So it doesn't matter that whether the word is a noun, you will pause and look at the noun, or the verb and look at the action. No. When you are reading it, can you see some raising? Can you hear the raising because the words are very close to each other? Found a bird frail. Found a bird frail. You can see there is a noun, a bird there. But if you listen carefully, you can see some kind of musicality, because found and frail are close to each other. Found a frail. Found a bird frail. Yeah. But that is why I said that the word from is far away from the two, meaning that we'll not consider it, not because of the word class, not because of bleeding is a verb or and is a conjunction, but because they are very far away from each other. That when you mention friend, by the time you come to from, the musicality will have been lost. I hope that I have answered your question.
Yes, thank you.
You are welcome.
From Faith.
Okay, Faith.
Hi, Mr. Terry.
I'm fine, Faith. Gogi, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. My question is on the persona. You said that the persona is a young man. What makes you specify the gender of this person and the age?
The gender and the age.
The age. Yes.
The reason why is because of the events, the events that come from the whole poem. Because if it was a sister, for instance, you see, when you go to the extended meaning, Gogi, or the inferred meaning, we realize that it is a lover who has been taken to the sister. So we assume that if it was another girl who saw a bird in the farm, they would have taken it for themselves. Okay, a sister cannot carry a lover to their sister. Only two boys who would find another boy and take the boy to the sister so that they can be the lover. Again, when you talk about the age, Gogi, it is about lovers, not marriage people. They are suitors, meaning these are young people. Old people don't talk about suitors. You know, suitors are those people whom you are courting with before you get married. So when you read the whole of this Gogi, that is how you'll come with that kind of analysis that this must be a boy. Because if it was another girl, the girl would have taken the boy for him, for her. If we can't talk about the old people, the age cannot talk about suitors, Gogi. So Gogi, have I answered you?
Yes. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So that's how we come to the gender and the age. Thank you.
Wow, wow, that is so nice. In fact, even me, I was wondering now from that passage, that is a poem. How did you conclude that? But now I can see the picture. Wow, thank you very much, Mwalim.